Now we're going to talk about probably one of the hardest topics to talk about in world history. Um, this concept of genocide, targeting people, killing people based on some kind of social construct that they're a different race or they're a different group or they're just different than us. And the Holocaust, which means, of fire, burned by fire, uh, is probably the turning point in world history where people, because of primary source interviews, movies, books, have really started to understand how horrible human beings can be to each other. On the other side of it, though, it's pretty amazing how hard and how strong human beings can be when they survive the Holocaust. To imagine people that made it against all odds, every moment was a moment that somebody could die or you could lose your life. And somehow, many Jews and other people, they persevered, they made through it, and they actually survived the Holocaust. How bad was this? Um, Approximately 6 to 9 million European Jews died World War II. It was a government program to exterminate the Jews by Nazi Germany. The end goal was called the final solution, and the final solution to the Jewish problem was to exterminate or kill all the Jewish people that Hitler could get to. You could see the extent of this. To the bottom right hand corner, that's actually a picture of a grave site. I just can't imagine how many bodies are in this grave. As a historian, we could get some estimates by counting the distance of bodies across and the depth wide, but look how deep that is. You're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of people are dead, and they threw their bodies in the ground and covered it up. Later on, they got much better. Instead of burying the bodies, they would burn them. You saw that it almost looked like snow at Auschwitz and Birkenau and all these death camps. Remember the three stages where they rounded Jews up in ghettos, they moved them to concentration camps, and finally they went to a death camp so they could officially exterminate or kill them. And Auschwitz had Dr. Mengele doing experiments with no medicine to make these people numb to his torture and his Nazi medicine, if you want to call that, based on race and concepts like that. And then finally, they would burn the bodies, and you'd just see a cloud of ashes falling from the chimneys. It looks like snow. And that what kind of blew the American soldiers away when they went into those camps. And we saw in the video that a lot of German people would say, "Oh, we did not know." And a lot of Americans said, "Well, you didn't see the chimneys of ash? I mean, you could smell the rot of flesh." And people lived in towns right next to Auschwitz and all these places. Auschwitz is still standing today. You can go visit it as a remembrance of how horrible human beings can be to each other. And the question is, can we really learn from that? Or have we? Or do we still have genocide with Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, or Muslims that have been targeted in China, or other groups throughout the world? The Nazis created what were called the Nuremberg Laws that took away Jewish German citizenship and made it illegal to marry a Jewish person. So it started out small. It's a small process. The Germans and the Nazis kind of take power. And by 1933, they really solidified their power. Right after Roosevelt became president of the United States, and you had somebody who's going to use government maybe to help people in need, Hitler took power in Germany, and he was elected as well. That's what scares me as somebody, a student of history, that people actually elected Adolf Hitler. They wanted the Nazi Party to be in charge of their country. They're pretty clear about most of their intentions. They blamed the Jewish people. They blamed groups. They told you they're going to bring law and order, which meant law and order under their terms. Um, it just kind of blows your mind. But it started out small. It was kissing or marrying a Jewish person was against the law. or Jewish people couldn't work. And then slowly but surely, they pushed the Jewish people in the camps and tried to get the German people to forget about them. And they tried to convince the German people through propaganda that they were like rats and they were an infectious species that had polluted the world. This picture is just one that always stands out in my mind. I just want you to kind of process this. This was taken in Berlin at the time, and you see it's Hanukkah, so they have the candles representing the days of Hanukkah, uh, and behind it you see a flag hanging off a building, and on that building, on that is a Nazi symbol. It also says to me a lot of things about perseverance. I'm just curious what you think of this. Now, how did they systematically kill the Jewish people? And not just Jewish people, there were many others that were thrown and killed through genocide and the Holocaust. The Germans and the Nazis, specifically the Nazis, also killed people of color. There wasn't as many, obviously, in Germany at the time. Communists were the ultimate enemy. They hated communists. Nazis and communists could not stand each other. And when you look at the end of the war, it is so out of control. The Nazis are absolutely brutal towards the Russian communists when they invade Russia and the Soviet Union. And when the Soviet Union starts winning the war at the end and they run back through Poland and they cut through Germany, they are just as vicious, if not worse. We have estimates that maybe over 3 million German women were raped by the Soviets when they came into Germany. And they even had children that were born as a result of this. And they have a name for it in Germany. They targeted homosexuals with you can see it's the pink triangle. That represented homosexuals. Jewish prisoners would have the Star of David on them. We've seen that. You've seen pictures of this. Roma, people call them gypsies. Gypsies is derogatory for Roma. Roma are a group of people that have a common heritage, and they tend to be very nomadic. There's a lot more Roma that move around Europe than in America. We do have Roma. We have Roma caravans in St. Louis. They used to come at least once a year to SLU. I remember, and they would sell trinkets and things, and they do sales, and they have their own unique culture, and their religion's a little different as well than most conventional Catholic or Christian religions. Catholics were not well liked. They were seen as a challenge to the Nazis because they might have allegiance to the Pope or the Church. And some Catholic bishops actually challenged Adolf Hitler. The biggest protest in Nazi Germany was in Munich, and it was led by a Catholic bishop, who protested what they called mercy killings, which were the murdering of people that are disabled or elderly. And people would go to the actual nursing homes to go see their grandpa or grandma, and the Nazis wanted to exterminate the disabled and the elderly because they were seen as a drain on society. They cost the government money to take care of them. And they would basically put them on school buses and go gas them away from people and then bury the bodies. And people would come to look for their grandparents, and they wouldn't understand why. And this Catholic priest led a 100,000 person protest in Germany under Hitler. People did fight back on that issue, which tells you that there were people that resisted. Jehovah's Witnesses were a big target, very disliked by the Nazis. It was a relatively newer religion at the time, an American religion, but it was spreading throughout Europe at the time. And then you have what are called asocials. Asocials are a term that you won't hear outside of Nazi history. Asocials are people that are socially undesirable. And their concepts are very strange. Like, they would think that, remember, everything was based on race and genes. So they thought that if your father or mother had did something wrong or they had bad genes, therefore you could be bad. So it was not unheard of for them to put asocial children of your dad was a prisoner, to put you in a camp. Why risk that person ever stealing a car if your dad stole a car? Or if somebody's bad or they don't look right or something's wrong, we need to eradicate them. We need to get rid of them, because one of their goals was to have a pure Aryan race. They believed in race, And the ideas between race were there were the Aryans and there were other groups. Jewish people are a race to them. They talked about the Jewish race. Now we know Judaism is a religion and a culture with a common heritage, and we call that being ethnically Jewish, as opposed to somebody that just is Jewish religion, as converted or they've become Jewish. The Nazis started putting these people in concentration camps as early as 1933, and then the final solution was drug out until 1944, almost 45, and the war is completely come to an end. And you can see the final orders of many of the Nazi leaders was to kill all the Jews, kill all the prisoners, to make sure there's no evidence. So they knew the trials were coming and they were going to get in trouble. So they wanted to kill all the evidence and burn the bodies. No, you can't prove that we did this. Well, we did because they took meticulous records. They used train companies. Remember, there was capitalists. Nazi Germany was capitalist, even though they're called the socialists. So there was a lot of Nazi companies that were pro-Nazi that made a lot of money off this. And then you can see there's another grave in the middle, and these are some of the children that were used by Mengele. And you can see the camp itself with barbed wire, which was invented in World War One. And we have pictures, documentation, video of this stuff, and people still say it did not happen. Genocide is the deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of an ethnic group. So we talk about the Rohingya Muslims, which is an ethnic group in Myanmar, and now they've been spread out in some in China and so forth and so on. We talk about Kurds in Iraq and Turkey have been targeted and been ethnically targeted by Saddam Hussein. Under his government, he killed the Kurds, he'd gas them and kill them because they are just not good Muslim like himself. They weren't Ba'athist party members, and they weren't they were the wrong members of the wrong group. Hitler's final solution was a plan to kill all the Jews in Europe before World War II. And the guy on the right, that's Heinrich Himmler with the glasses. That was Adolf Hitler's right-hand man. That was his most dedicated SS guy. And the SS was in charge of the final solution in the Holocaust. So Himmler was in charge of this. And you could even see, like, they would have collars. The people that worked in the death camps would have like a skull with crossbones to show what they did. I mean, it's just, there was evidence all over the place. You see how deep these graves are before they start burning the bodies. We still find graves today. And I want you to read this. I want you to really think about this. This is one of the most profound quotes to me. And actually, I took a picture of this when I was at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And, you know, I've heard it before, but to see it in that context really stood in my mind. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I wasn't not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there I was. No one left to speak for me. And that's Martin Niemöller, and he was a Lutheran priest, minister, who started pushing back against Hitler. I want you to think about this. I'm going to challenge you. Is this relevant today? Do we need to speak out against injustice? What injustices would you speak out against? And this is what Europe looked like before Nazi Germany. In Poland alone, there was 3.3 million Jewish people. There's maybe 5,000 Jewish people in Poland today. 5,000 out of 3.3 million. Czechoslovakia might have 1,000, like 20,000 Jewish people. Hitler almost achieved the final solution. Russia had 3.2 million Jewish people. Many were massacred when the Nazis invaded the country. They're gone. The population of Jewish people in the world has still never recovered from the Holocaust. There are about 14 million Jewish people today. That is less than there were before the Holocaust. That's how effective Adolf Hitler and and hatred was at killing Jewish people. And think of those 6 million people, how many children they would have had in the last 80 years. Millions of children.